IVM.
We at IVM like rewards, and we hate being late. With Cred, never make a late credit card payment again. Cred reminds you when your due date is approaching and looks for hidden charges on your bill so you can never be taken advantage of again. All these amazing features only on the Cred app. So what are you waiting for? Just download Cred. Alright, welcome to another awesome episode of IVM Likes. This is the 197th episode of IVM Likes. So we are rapidly approaching 200, and we'll do something very awesome for 200. So stay tuned for that, guys. For those of you joining us for the first time, my name is Antariksh Thakkar. I'm the host for the show. And joining me on this episode are Amit Doshi. Amit, hi, how are you?
Hello, how are you?
All
You
good.
don't invite me for
And,
the show anymore, man. You have too many
I'll
other producers
invite
to
you
bring
more.
for this.
I have got a lot of producers, yes. No. And also joining Amit and me is Jalasmi, my co-producer at
Hi.
IBM.
Hello,
Hi,
hello.
Jalasmi. All right. So today we have a very exciting episode. All of us are huge consumers of TV shows and movies. So we're going to be talking about the best hangout places in TV shows. Mostly TV shows. I'm sure Jalasmi, I'm told, has some movies she wants to talk about as well. But we're going to be talking about the best hangout places. I know a lot of us are missing our favorite hangout places. We can't really go to them that much right now. Unless your hangout place is at your friend's place, then do what you want. We can't stop you. But you're not supposed to. So don't do it. So that's coming up in the second half of this episode. In the first half, as you guys know, we give you guys some awesome recommendations as to something we have either recently checked out or are checking out right now. This can be a TV show, a movie, book, a YouTube channel. Anything is on the table. And so let's get started with the first half. Let's go with Jalasmi. Would you like to start us off with your recommendation?
So I have two Instagram accounts to recommend. One is
wow.
called Daily Overview. So I recently came across a picture of our airport in a bird's eye view, not even drone. Drone is a little closer, I guess. A bird's eye view, and they have like pictures of such bird's eye view pictures of a lot of good places all over the world. And it was
Yeah.
just a good thing to watch. And the other one is called the Music Project. So they just pick up, it's like multiple short videos, and there is some song playing in the background. Now, their choice of songs is really good. And if you're a Bollywood fan, you will definitely love it. So I think that's what I like about that account. So it's Daily Overview and the Music Project.
About Daily Overview, what kind of do they like post videos? All of them are these bird's eye view kind of videos?
Yeah, videos, not much, but yeah, pictures. Bird's eye view
Oh.
pictures of a lot of different places.
And they're urban
All right.
landscapes as opposed to like forest or mountain tree or nature things. These are mostly urban
Yeah.
landscapes.
Yeah, mostly urban
Interesting.
landscapes.
Very cool.
Yeah, interesting.
Sounds really interesting.
And the music project is just songs of Bollywood, or do they have like other songs as well?
Mainly, like so far, I've just seen Bollywood films and not the regular ones. Like, some forgotten song that you occasionally might have heard on radio, some songs which do not usually make it to your playlist. But when it released, it was one of those songs that you were hooked on to.
Mhm.
So they are bringing
Wow, okay.
back those songs, and just, you pause and open Instagram, and sometimes you just see the song and it just makes your day.
Give us
So
an example
Jalasmi-
of one of those songs, no?
Oh, yeah, sure.
They had this song called, recently they just put out Yun Hi Chala Chal Rahi from Swades, and
Love
I
it.
think
Wow.
we haven't been out, we haven't been on drives since so long, but just to listen to that
Wow.
song felt very refreshing, like in
Yeah.
the
What are the
afternoon at
odds?
2 o'clock.
I'm not even kidding. What are the odds? I was listening to Yun Hi Chala Chal Rahi for the last week. Every day I've been listening to it for at least once. Like while I go for my shower, it's like a good song I like to listen to.
Okay.
What are
Yeah.
the odds that you were talking about the same song in the same week?
Yay!
This is
High
insane.
five.
Wow. Yeah, really. This is crazy. So awesome. Jalasmi, for those of you who might not know, is our resident Bollywood expert and Hindi songs expert.
Yes.
So that's what we go to Jalasmi for.
Excellent.
Yes.
That's good to know.
all
I
right.
did not know that. I'm very happy to know that now.
Oh yeah. So like anytime I need anyone to talk about something in Bollywood, but Jalasmi is the first person I talk to. Like, hey Jalasmi, we need to record this episode for likes. This is the theme,
Yes.
and she's like, yes. I will I had 10 things to talk about, and she come up with like a long list of movies and stuff that we can talk about. It's always
Awesome.
good.
Yeah.
So that's Jalasmi's recommendation. Thanks, Jalasmi. Amit, what about you? What would you like to recommend?
So I'm going to recommend a non-fiction book. It is a book called Nine Nasty Words. This is a book written by John McWhorter. John McWhorter is a linguist. He is, I think, Yale, Columbia, a bunch of other schools like that. It's a really interesting kind of. He brings a very interesting perspective to just the general kind of commentary around language and stuff like that. Also around the general wokeness and stuff like that that people kind of are that people look at today, right? And so Nine Nasty Words is essentially a examination of how cursing has kind of what it means through the ages, right? And what's interesting is it's a the book is set out as a contrast to George Carlin's Seven Dirty Words, and
Currency on television.
how
Yes. Correct.
and how basically cursing has evolved, not just since the 50 years since George Carlin did his thing, right? But even in the years prior to that, right? And what are the taboos that we look at in society back then compared to today? Because if you
So
think
what
of
are
like,
the words they're talking about? Like I'm sure the
so
like
that's what's
fuck is
interesting,
one
right?
of
So,
them.
so actually, fuck is one of them. But it's what's interesting about this is that most of the words, when you're looking at the George Carlin era and the words that he was talking about over there, most of
Yep.
those
Yep.
words were words which were related towards sex, or they were related towards bodily functions, or basically things
Correct.
that
Yep.
you would do and things that were supposed to be private that have been put public, right?
Yep.
Whereas if you
Correct.
look
Yep.
at most of the words which are considered to
Like taboo.
be
Yeah.
taboo today, they're almost always identity driven words. When you're talking
Like the
about
you mean the
black,
N word or like the F
the N
word or something like
word,
that.
the F word when you're talking about gay people, the C word when you're
Yeah.
talking about women, these are all basically identity
Hmm.
driven words rather than being words which kind of take their emphasis from that. And that's a very interesting commentary, I think, in terms of how times have progressed, right?
Wow. Yeah.
I think in some cases, sometimes these things go too far, and John McWhorter is a big proponent of that, right? He talks a lot about and this is how I came to him, right? He had written a very interesting article on a Substack of his own that he's created, where he was talking about the New York Times science journalist who was forced to resign or fired or whatever you call it because he referred to the N word when in the explanation of something. Somebody asked him, "Is the N word ever appropriate?" And he referred to the word, saying, "Okay, was it being used in this way or this way or this way?" Right? And so
Hmm.
John McWhorter is a big proponent of the fact that using words is not damaging just by putting syllables together. The context matters in terms of how you use them. If somebody is hurling an epithet that's very different than somebody who's referring to one and discussing it and trying to deconstruct it, because almost
Hmm.
always when you're trying to do that, you're using it in a way that, hey, this is a word you should not use and this is why you should not use it, right? And so
Hmm.
he's a really interesting thinker from that point of view. And yeah, it's a great book. I mean, I ran through it in like 4 hours.
Okay. Nine Nasty Words by John McWhorter. McWhorter, right?
McWhorter,
McWhorter.
McWhorter. Yeah.
Oh, okay, McWhorter. So Louis C.K. Used to have this very funny joke about the N word, and he used to say
I,
like, you know this? Yeah. So he used to be
I
like, you shouldn't. You can. The reason people like when you say the N word instead of saying the actual word,
yeah,
you're making the other person think that word,
yeah.
right? So and that's you're kind of like that's kind of like a dick move. Like this is not a cool move, not a cool thing to do, because you're still basically saying the word. You're just saying
You
it
are in
this
a
the
different
N
way.
word. I'm yeah in a different way. I'm butchering the explanation. It's a very funny bit. Go check it out.
No,
Very
no,
very
but
thought provoking also.
you're absolutely right, and I mean, like, he was absolutely right, and I think, like, that's referred to over
Yeah.
here in some sense as well, right? But again, it comes down to that, right? It comes down to if you're using a euphemism, which means essentially the same thing, right? It
Yeah.
still
Basically.
comes
Yeah.
down to, are you referring to it or are you hurling it? Are you using it as an expletive, or are you discussing the cultural
Exactly.
significance
The
of it, the
word
moral
itself. Yeah.
significance of it,
Correct.
what the
Yeah.
word
Yeah.
means, right? And I
Yeah.
think that these
Exactly.
are important distinctions, and I think Louis C.K. speaks to that. I think this book speaks to it wonderfully as well.
Awesome. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. A great recommendation. I'll come to mine. I want to recommend a YouTube channel. Uh, so I've been trying to understand more about history a little bit.
Mm.
But I am not much of a reader, so I YouTube is a great repository for all this. I found a channel called Past to Future. What this channel
Okay.
does is they will give you like a cool brief history, but they will give you that with like cool animated visual aids. For instance,
Okay.
they have a video about. So I was recently on Cyrus. I was, if you guys are also listening to Cyrus says, uh, I had recently talked about the Blitz and how certain things that we were talking about in the episode happened during the Blitz. The Blitz was the German bombing campaign against Britain, against various cities in Britain in the 1940s. Like for 1 year in 1940, Germany basically bombarded different cities like port cities. London they bombarded, and other like smaller. I think Manchester was one of the cities that got bombarded. So they this basically this video talks about that, and but with like very cool visual aids and like very like easy way to understand. And you understand the timelines, you understand what happened in the a little bit in the background, also what the UK government was thinking at the time, what the German Nazi government was thinking at the time. So what their like different ideologies were and what led to this clash. And it's very well explained, very well done. They have another video on Operation Barbarossa. Operation Barbarossa was the Hitler's invasion of the Soviet Union in around that Second World War time only,
1944.
1944, June of 1944.
1944. Turned around at Stalingrad.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that's the one. So
It's
this is
where
they
the
have a great video
phrase
on.
comes from. It's where the phrase comes from. Never invade Russia in winter.
Yeah, exactly. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Because they had such a bad time. Germany had such a bad time trying to invade Russia during winter, because their
Mm.
troops weren't dressed for that kind of a winter. Their tanks weren't able to tread those like high snowfall or whatever. It's like a huge thing. So check it out. Very interesting video. The entire channel is super interesting. Past to Future. I would highly recommend it. There's another similar channel called Armchair Historian, which also does this. So another, if you want just another similar channel to worth checking out, you can do that also. But Past the Future, I would highly recommend it.
There is
Uh,
another
so
one which is also along the same kinds of lines. It's done by the same guy who does Mental Floss. He does a history channel as well. Same kind of thing, right? 10-minute pieces of history. You should definitely check it out
okay,
since you've taken this new interest in
yeah,
history.
yeah, exactly. I'm gonna check this out. All right, cool. That brings us to the end of the first half. Jalasmi, could you please run us down what you recommended?
Yeah, I recommended Daily Overview and the Music Project. Both are Instagram accounts.
Yep. Amit, what about you?
I recommended 9 Nasty Words by John McWhorter. It is a non-fiction book.
All right, awesome. And I recommended Past to Future, the YouTube channel. And as an alternative, you can also check out the Armchair Historian, which is another YouTube channel. Thank you so much, guys. That's been this half. See you guys on the other side.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you're not following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I'd like to thank the sponsors on the network this week, Cred, thewholetruthfoods.com, and Seat Tires. We really do appreciate the support. So the last year's been tough for all of us, and the second wave of COVID really hit us badly. To help those affected by the pandemic in India, the podcasting community has come together under the Pod for Change banner to raise funds through an exclusive NGO partner, Give India. Join IVM and Pod for Change as we look to make a positive impact in the life of those affected by COVID-19. You can go to tinyurl.com/podforchangeindia, and remember, somebody could really use the help. And now back to the promo. On the Simplified podcast, the gang explains the oxygen crisis happening in the country and tells us the various measures being taken to tackle it. On States of Anarchy, Hamsani Hariran talks about how the geopolitical relationships shaped COVID response and the world order. As Indians, we're all familiar with acid reflux or heartburn, given the spicy food we consume. On The Habit Coach, Ashton has some simple solutions to counter that. Osama Moria explores the iconic neighborhood of Dadar and tells us its connection to outer space in Postcards from Nowhere. It was Dangle time on The Fighting Goat, as hosts Somesh and Arjun were joined by unbeaten MMA fighter and Commonwealth gold medalist Ritu Fogart. The traveling professor Siddharth Deshmukh shares examples of various innovations that came up during the COVID times and helped us deal with the situation. And with that, let us get you back to your show.
All right, welcome back to the second half of this episode. As I mentioned in the beginning of this episode, we'll be talking about our favorite hangout spots from TV shows and some movies as well. First of all, I want to start off. I'm sure a lot of us miss going out, as we already talked about in the beginning. Did you guys have any addas, like friends, like spots they used to go to?
Oh
when
God,
you were like maybe in
yes.
your younger days? Yeah, like a
Yeah.
No,
particular
not.
spot where you like by default you just show up there and you find some of the other friend is always there.
y- yeah. I mean, like, I've had many of them over the years.
Okay, like for example, like
When I
was it
was
like bars or they cafes?
no, bars, always bars.
Always bars, always
Uh,
bars.
so Ghetto used to be a regular hangout.
Okay.
Before that, actually, the Rasna pub near Churchgate. This was
Oh,
before. This was when I was still like in my 11th and 12th standard. So that was like the first independent bar, which was like a nice pub type bar that had opened in Bombay. Before that, you either
yeah.
had like quarter bars or you had 5 stars. Right. So this was the first kind of
Mm.
nice independent bar that opened. This was 91, 92, something like that. So that was the first one. Then after that, when I came back after college from the US, there was Ghetto at Malakshmi. On Saturdays, there was 1900s at the Taj. Then I think in the
Okay.
early 2000s, there was Fire and Ice at Phoenix. Uh, and I think I probably stopped at that point in time in terms of like the bar, regular bar kind of thing.
Mm.
But yeah, Fire and Ice went up till like probably around 2004 or 5, something like that. The whole Phoenix area. Maybe it wasn't Fire and Ice. It changed from Fire and Ice to Provoke. Provoke had a cafe over there, so it was
Yeah.
that. And then from that, it turned into like
Were
there was a
you
fashion bar.
okay? Were you like more always more of a like hanging out at bars kind of person or hanging out at like houses kind of person?
So I became a hanging out at houses kind of person after that, right? So basically, I think I
Oh,
think I was a hangout at bars person till I was like about 30, 32. After which I became a hanging out at houses kind of person. And some of that's just like natural progression. Friends got older, they had kids,
yeah.
couldn't go out as
Correct.
much
Yeah.
as they used to. So some of it was that. Some of it was also just kind of yeah, you realize how much cheaper it is to drink at home than it is to drink at a bar. I mean, like
Yeah.
that's something that also, and you get freedom as well, right? Like once you're over 30, you don't really your relationship with parents change, right? At that point in time, I think just generally, right? Before that, you're like a kid to your parents, and so you have to
Okay.
like do things.
Neither of us are 30
Huh?
yet, so we don't know. Neither
Ah.
of us are 30 yet.
So
So
yeah, no. So both of you, I'm sure there is a certain sense of like, oh, I can do this in front of my parents, and I can't do this in front of my parents, and like
Yeah,
yeah,
there
there
is
for
is.
that,
sure, for
right?
sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas I
Yeah.
think that once you get past 30, it's more like there are still some things you don't want to do in front of parents, but that list kind of becomes smaller and smaller, right? Like I'm okay with calling 4 friends home and having a few drinks with them at home now, right? Whereas when I
Yeah. I
was in
get.
my 20s, I wouldn't even have to have a beer where my mom is in the same kind of vicinity was kind of like, okay,
Yeah.
go over there and you can have your beer, and it was like kind of
Mm.
that kind of a
Yeah.
scenario. And again, this might
Yeah.
be not the way that things are right now, but that's how they were back then.
All right. Yeah. So again, just that made me think of something else. Like, if you were ever at like a wedding party or something, did you have to
Mhm.
hide from your parents that you're having a beer on
Yeah.
the side, or were you just like, "It's a
So
party. I can do this."
so my cousin got married in 2001 or 2002. All right, so she got married. She got married in Lonavala, and we had like these card parties throughout the day because their family is a
Uh-huh.
big card family, right? And so it
Yeah.
was literally somebody would come, give me a beer. There was a small table underneath the big table which you're playing cards on, where I kept my
Oh
beer,
wow.
and then basically you drink it whenever there's nobody, or when at least
Oh
everybody is
wow.
busy playing cards and nobody is
Yeah.
looking at what other people are doing. But yeah, no,
Oh
you
nice.
wouldn't keep your beer. And everybody, like, the table that I was playing on was me and 4 other cousins, right?
Yeah.
Like my cousins, so basically extended cousins and that kind of stuff, right? But all of us had that table,
Yeah.
which was right underneath our table where we would keep our alcohol, which we don't want to show our parents.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
get it.
absolutely,
Wow.
100%.
What about you, Jalasmi? Did you have like any such cool spots where you would just convene as a group?
The entire Thakur village is a cool spot.
Wow, that's an
Yeah.
oxymoron. Thakur village and cool in the same sentence.
Oh,
I'm
please.
joking. I'm totally
Please.
joking.
This
I'm
naam
joking.
mein village hai. You have to come here and see how awesome this place is. But no, I was never a house. My parents are not very friendly with my friends, to be very honest.
Hmm.
So we always met out. So there are a lot of small cafes here. We just walk mostly. And there is one place which has opened. It's called Chai Resto Bar.
Hmm.
It's like a small cafe, but it has outdoor seating. So a lot of people these days have started hanging out there. So even I meet my friends over there. When I was in Mithibai, pretty much the college floors are made of marble. So you
Yeah,
can actually just sit anywhere. If you're
Right.
not wearing
yeah,
white, you
Mithima,
can
yeah.
really just sit
And
anywhere. And
your
you
cafeteria
can
is
just
great
talk.
also. You guys is
The cafe used to be full all the time. So we hardly hung out at the cafe. But otherwise, the entire college, we can sit anywhere and just, read a book, meet friends, everything. So that was kind
yeah.
of the cool spot. But otherwise, it's mostly outdoors or terraces or building sitting places, all of those.
And what about the same question, Amit? What about like at weddings and all? Were you fine with drinking in front of your parents?
See, until now, that has never happened. Like, not many of my friends are married yet, or, in Gujju weddings, we usually don't have alcohol. But if it
Yeah,
શું
happens,
okay.
I
વાત
don't
કરે
think
છે અમારા ઘરે તો હોય છે.
અમારા ઘરે હજી નથી
Yeah.
but I think I'll be comfortable. See, they know that I drink. If I am going out to a bar with my friends, I tell them. So I don't think it's going to be an issue. They'll be cool about it. Mummy will just give looks every now and then ki मैं
Uh,
तुम्हें देख रही हूँ. But otherwise, I don't
yeah,
think it's
she
going
can't
to be an
openly.
issue.
Yeah, yeah, she can't
Yeah.
openly be cool with it. I get
I
it.
mean, I'll have my cousins,
Uh,
and if they are drinking with me, then it's okay. अरे मेरी बहन भी पी रही है, तुमको क्या problem है? Something like that.
yeah, fair enough.
Can I,
So for me,
I
yeah, please.
before you go, like I'd like to add one which is so unusual, right? In that sense, you're asking about
Mm,
hangout spaces, right? And
yeah,
since I'm the old head over here, let me kind of give the description of the old times. In the late
mm,
90s, one of the main places to hang out and where I would meet the probably more friends than I ever met anywhere else randomly was the
yeah,
late night show at Sterling Cinema. So they used to have a show at 10:45 in the night, okay, at Sterling Theatre, which was called the Creme de la Creme Show. Okay, so tickets were a little more expensive. It was always a new movie that was coming out every Friday that they would show over there. And
yeah.
you would go there, and it's like you would run into like, again, this is a South Bombay thing, so it's probably not everywhere, right? But I'd go and see
Mm.
a movie over there, and I'd run into like 50 people in the course of seeing the movie. And everybody is going over there to watch the movie. It's the same people every week. It was a I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like that, where there is a movie experience which became that kind of central to people's social lives.
Was it only with Sterling though? What about like
It was
others
only
like
Sterling.
Liberty and Metro and all that? No.
Sterling was the English movie theater. Now, back in early
Okay.
in the early 90s, early to late 90s, right? The English movie theaters were Sterling and Regal. New Empire
Oh,
was an English movie
all right.
theater, and then this one became an English movie theater for a certain amount of time. Central Plaza, which is near the Chani Road station. But these were
Mm.
essentially your only four English movie theaters. Everything else was a Hindi movie. Eros, Liberty, Metro, New Excelsior, all of them. Basically, everything else was a Satyam, Sachinam, Sundaram was another one. They were all Hindi movie theaters. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt that, but I thought that this was an interesting kind of twist on the Hangout.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah, no.
absolutely.
I think these community spaces should totally come back.
Agreed.
Yeah.
100% agree. It was one of the most fun things to do, right? Because I mean, you're going to see
Yeah,
a movie, and then like as you're coming out of the movie, like you'd stand outside the theater for like 45 minutes discussing the movie with people, right?
Yeah.
All people you know, and that's something that's an experience which you don't have anymore, because you go for five people with a movie, you see the movie, the five of you sit in a car, you talk about it for 5 minutes on your way to whatever restaurant you're going to, and then you're done, right? But this
Yeah.
idea also, it was so late at night, right? 10:45 movie means that it's ending at like 1 o'clock or something like that. So
yeah.
if you're going to the suburbs, you have to run back and like head to the train station. But if you're somebody who lived in town, you'd like just hang out forever over there.
Yeah. And town at
Yeah.
night is beautiful.
Yes, it is.
Of
Not
course.
that
Yes.
Sterling was, but yes, otherwise generally yes.
Yeah.
Right. So getting to me, my thing about with at weddings and all, I've always been fine. My parents have always been fine with just drinking if you're just because
You're
all my cousins are
Punjabi,
like all
dude.
Punjabis.
It's
Exactly.
cool.
Yeah. It's exactly for sure. The stereotype is actually it's there. It's not like a racist thing that people have just come up with. It's absolutely there. Because
Karobar.
till her death, my grandmother was drinking beer till her death. Like till
Yep.
she died, she was drinking beer like a week before was the last beer she probably had.
I
Uh,
learned how to
so
drink hard
that's
liquor from Punjabi friends.
Really? Oh wow.
I learned how
See,
to
yeah,
drink beer from, like, because we were 14 years old and you had to learn how to drink, right?
yeah,
But drinking
yeah.
hard liquor, I learned from Punjabi friends. How to kind of consume like whiskey seriously. That I learned from Punjabi friends.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. So same, like a lot of my other Punjabi friends did spoil me into whiskey and vodka and what have you. But so I used to bunk college a lot, and we would go to hookah bars. That was a huge fad
Okay.
when we were in college.
Yeah.
Jealousy, I'm sure you would remember this, right? It was hookah bars were
No, I never went.
no.
I was a nerd, 100% attendance. But I know
Oh
about
wow.
hookah bars. I had other friends. I was the one person, agar if they are cancelling class, they're like mass
Yeah.
bunking, I will be that one girl who will attend.
Oh
So
yeah, you
yeah.
are the problem, Jealousy. Wow, that used to happen so often. We used to be like, "Oh, it's raining like crazy. Let's nobody go to work. No, there's nobody go to college."
Yeah.
And there'll always be that one person who shows up. And now I know
That's
it's
me.
Jealousy. Who's one of the yeah.
But if there's a proxy for Matibai, we would go to Juhu Beach sometimes. Early morning, 7:30 class gets cancelled. What do? You go to Juhu. So that I just
Yeah.
remembered. Yeah.
It was your college in Juhu. Oh, you Metibai,
Yeah,
of course. Yeah.
Matibai, of
Yeah, yeah,
course.
yeah, yeah, of course. So yeah, my college was also in Juhu. I was in Kamla Reja College for Architecture, and so we used to bunk a lot, and we would like go to these hookah bars. Uh, Although later in life, we one of my favorite hangout places became Chayos Thane because there's a Chayos in Thane, and I used to organize comedy shows there. Okay, so every week we would have like it just become like a whole all these comedians, like there'll be like 20 comics, and there'll be an audience who would like hang out before and after the show, because we had like formed these regulars who would show up at every show. And because the same people are coming up for every show, you have to write new jokes every week.
Yeah.
So that used to be a lot of fun, because the same people can't laugh at the same jokes again. So
They
like
won't, yeah.
at least like 50% or 40 to 50% of your set would have to be new jokes. Otherwise, these people just what do they do? It's not a
That's
good experience for them.
challenging, man.
But
That's
you
really
have to do it. I mean,
challenging every week.
it's definitely challenging, but it's it's an open mic, so your jokes
Yeah.
won't be great every week. They'll
That's
become
true.
better as like with after a month or two at least of working on them. So that is what it is. But that used to be one of the best hangout spaces, because we used to do completely free shows. Okay, completely free shows at this Chayos, where we used to like not even we used to just promote like one or two posts. Most of the audience that we would get is by barking outside the comedy show, outside the venue. We would just stand
Really?
outside with like small brochures, small like pamphlets, and we would just hang them out, talk to people like, "Hey, we have a free comedy show going on inside." All these funny comedians just like make up names. I mean, not lie, but like sometimes, like say Sriram, who is a regular collaborator of ours on Cock and Bull. Sriram used to be a regular person who used to come to these Chayo shows, and so Sriram was still on the up and coming, and still is obviously, but he was like a little bit known. So like anyone who's a little bit known, we'll say their name. Oh, these funny, very funny comedians, like Sriram Padmanabhan. He has all these videos out. He's like 1.1 million views and all. I'm sure that time it was like 700K views or whatever. But but we would like to just sell the hell out of these shows. And the shows would always start with like 2 or 3 people in the audience. By the middle of the show, there'll be like 35 people, and it's like a full house. Because there's a comedy show going on, and then people realize the comedy show going on. So people are like, "Oh, there's a comedy show going on. I'm interested." There's like 35 people in the middle, and then by the end of it, again, because it used to go on for like 1.5 hours, 2 hours sometimes. By the end of it, again, there'll be like 6, 7 people. But like because and a rotating audience, so that also helps you develop your skills of crowd work. Because every time a new person comes in, you have to like talk to them, make them comfortable. So it used to became a great hangout space for a lot of comedians for that 1 year that we were doing this.
Interesting.
And yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Why?
That's really cool.
But why Thane? And
So I
honest
had
question, right? Because I mean, I feel like
yeah,
most
correct, absolutely.
comedians don't live in
Yeah,
Thane, and
absolutely.
I feel like the kind of
Absolutely.
thing that you're
It
doing,
was a travel for sure.
no,
Yeah.
and that kind of thing seems like something that most establishments would be happy to host. You're not charging anybody
Absolutely.
anything. It's an attraction for people to come who are there, especially a place like Chayos or Starbucks, which is normally just like in and out traffic, right? So why Thane?
Yeah.
Why was that choice made?
So my brother, like my family, co-owned the Chayos franchisee of the Warsaw Chayos.
There you go. That
So we had an
answers
in.
the question.
Yeah, exactly. So we had an in with Chayos, and so I approached them. I want to do these comedy shows. So this is also I had just started comedy, and this is the way I became regular in the scene. I forced myself to become regular in the scene by organizing shows, because if you organize, then you have to put up, like, at least try your best to put up a good show.
Right.
And that's how this really helped me a lot. And like again, so if you ever talk to Shriram or you talk to like Rohan Gujral or Masood Najani, all these other comedians in the scene, and if you ever talk to them about the Chayos Thane scene, Thane times, it's always all fond memories of like the show getting over. And us like, so there's like, it was at the Walk in Thane, if you've ever been on Hirandani Estate in Thane. So there are all
Oh.
these other pubs and all nearby. So like after the comedy show gets over, we are still hanging out till like 2-3
Yeah,
hours
I'm sure you
afterwards. And
guys
just
were all
keep going.
completely sober throughout the comedy shows and the
Yeah,
rest of
yeah,
it.
absolutely.
Total
Exactly.
sobriety.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, those are like super fun times. So before we just get into our favorite hangout space in TV shows, another question I have for you guys is: have you guys noticed that mostly it's the comedy sitcoms that get these kind of like hangout place treatment? It's not. I can't think of any drama shows or like thriller. Though I guess not.
There are
Where such places?
so there are two that I thought of, right? And
Yeah,
you know that I prepared intensely for this, right? I mean, like I did like
of
all
course.
my research and
Yes,
all
yes.
of that, right?
Of course, of
But
course.
but while we were thinking about this, right, two came to mind. Beverly Hills 90210 Peach Pit.
Okay, what was that?
Are you guys familiar with the original Beverly Hills 90210?
No,
Holy
not really.
shit, you guys are
It's,
kids. Okay.
is it a cop show?
Uh,
I'm imagining it's a
no.
cop show.
Beverly Hills
Okay, so it's
90210.
not. Oh,
Oh
not
my
one of
god.
the teen drama show, the teen
It's a
show,
teen
the
drama.
college
Yeah, it's
teens.
a
Oh
teen
yeah, sorry,
drama.
sorry.
Yeah.
Okay,
Teen
yeah,
drama. It's where Brandon. So Brandon was Jason Priestley, Shannon Doherty, Luke Perry, all of them. It was basically, it was a phenomenon back in like, so from like, I think it started like 88, 89, something like that, right? And from then
Oh, did
till
that
like
also just have like just was this a show of hot people doing like
it
college
was the
stuff? Yeah,
first hot high school kids show,
yeah,
full
exactly.
of
Yeah,
people who are
yeah,
way past college age. Right, so it
yeah.
was like, you know, like
Exactly.
you have like 16-year-olds being played by 29-year-olds, right? You know,
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
yeah. Okay.
But yeah, it was one of the first. It was the show which Melrose Place spun off from. Please tell me you've heard of Melrose Place. Oh God.
No.
Okay. All right. So no. So 90210 is a very old high school show, and it had
Yes.
it had something called the Peach Pit, which was a place where people hung out at. Uh, so
Okay.
so
What
that
was
was
the
one.
what was the
It was
hangout
like
spot?
a
Like was it like a
50s diner.
dancing spot or something?
Sorry.
Like skating rink or something? That's what I'm imagining. Like
No, it was like a
probably.
50s diner, 60s diner, that kind of. It
Oh,
was
it's
a
just
diner.
diner. Okay.
It was a
Okay.
diner, but it was a diner which the owner of the diner was like this guy who everybody thought was really cool, and so you know, it would become like a nightclub sometimes, and sometimes it would become like the place where you're having a birthday party with your family, and sometimes it'd be just a
Yep.
diner, and it was just like
Yep.
it was a do it all venue for everything, right?
Yeah.
So I think that was one that was in my mind. The other, I don't know if you'd really call it a hangout, right? But it is a restaurant that has multiple appearances in a show. This would be the restaurant, the fried chicken restaurant in Breaking Bad. The one
Oh
with
yeah.
what's his name? The Italian black guy as the owner of it. Guillermo, is that his first name? Guillermo. Sorry, the
I think I
actor's
like
name.
that.
Gus's restaurant. I
Okay.
think his name is Gus.
Yeah.
Gus
Okay.
is the name of the character. But
All right.
it's a Spanish named restaurant, which is the other one that I can think of from my this. But neither of them
I'm
are
like,
places
okay,
which I would
not.
particularly want to hang out at.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, exactly. So that's what I mean, because I think what happens is uh, comedy sitcoms, they usually have like a few set locations, right? They'll have
Yes.
like one or two locations because budgetary problems. So because all the
Yes.
camera setup and you know all that stuff. So they have like two or three locations which are always there in every episode, and they
Mhm.
try to revolve the plot around those locations as much as possible. Again, because of budgetary stuff. So as the
Yes.
TV show becomes popular, those hangout spaces also become popular, and
Mhm.
that's why I think comedy sitcoms. I think because of these budgetary strains, I think comedy sitcoms are more have more of these hangout spaces that become popular. Maybe I
So
think that could be it.
I agree with you 100%. But the point I would take issue on is it's not so much the budgetary restraint as much as it is the format restraint. Most of the
Okay.
comedies prior to, I think the first one, right? Like the really the first one, I can't remember which came first, How I Met Your Mother or The Office, the American Office, right? But these were the
I think
first two. Sorry.
Maybe The Office. I could be wrong, but
It
yeah,
could be The
please
Office.
go
I can't remember one of these two. Right? These were the first two big hit shows that I can remember that were what you would call single camera comedies rather than multi camera comedies, right? Whereas if you look
ahead.
at stuff like Friends, Seinfeld, Cheers,
Yeah,
which is one of
correct. They're all
my
multi-cams. Yeah,
this, right? They're all multi-camera
yeah,
comedies, right? And the
yeah.
reason for that was a efficiency issue rather than a budgetary issue. When you're
Hmm.
doing a multi-camera comedy, what you're doing is you're essentially you're creating a play-like atmosphere. So the amount of time it takes to shoot is significantly lower. Like making The Office and making How I Met Your Mother and making Parks and Recreation and Good Place and all of the modern comedies that are the single camera comedies, right? It's
Yeah,
much more intensive from a shooting schedule perspective than what these
yeah,
single camera comedy, multi camera comedies were. Because the way those would
correct.
work is that you do a table. So basically, you would have a 5-day work week. On Monday, you would
Yeah,
read the script, like you do a table read. On Tuesday and Wednesday, you would rehearse. On Thursday, you would do rehearsal with Brocking. On Friday, you'd record and you're done, right?
yeah, correct.
So because it's basically all rehearsal, and then after rehearsal, you bring in the audience, you shoot the thing, and it's going for post. Whereas a single camera, you have to kind of shoot a bunch of stuff. And also, what happens is that if you're doing a season long thing, sometimes you know that in the first season you're having the place where they met, or sorry, in the first episode the place they met, but in the 8th episode you're going to have a flashback, and in the 14th episode you're going to come back to that place where they met. And so you got to shoot all of that stuff on the first time itself when you go there, because otherwise the cost of location becomes exorbitant. So
Yes.
So but
yeah.
these single camera shows though, like for like for instance for How I Met Your Mother,
Mhm.
they didn't have like a live audience, did they?
So How I Met Your Mother, I
Because
think, had a laugh track, but it didn't have a live
laugh
audience.
track.
Yeah,
Yeah. So Friends had a live audience, right? Because they
Friends had a
were
Yeah.
live audience.
multicam shows used to have live
Yeah,
audiences.
yeah.
Yeah, I just checked The Office and so what was the other show we was talking about?
How I Met Your Mother.
How I Met Your Mother both started in 2005. Yeah,
Okay,
they
all
both
right.
started. Same.
These are the first that I can remember. I'm sure there were ones earlier than that which were like these, right? But these are the first two I remember as, like, big hit and important shows. And also when this conversation started, multi-camera versus single camera, right? I mean,
Yeah,
like, that is a conversation that started for real, right? Because you look at everything now, it's all single camera. Very little multi-camera
okay.
happens, right? Netflix
Yeah,
does a bunch of multi-camera stuff. They did a
yeah.
show with Kevin James recently where he plays some sort of NASCAR driver. They
They're doing one with
have
Ashton Kutcher, The Ranch.
The Ranch. That's again a
Ranch.
single
Yeah,
multi-camera. So
correct.
Netflix has a
Multicam.
bunch
Yeah.
of these multi-camera shows because the thing about a multi-camera setup, right, is it feels like comfort food in a way that single camera does not. Single camera, the camera tricks available to you from a technical perspective are such that there is a possibility that you feel a little. You can be emotionally manipulated in much greater degrees than you can with a multi-camera setup.
Yeah, so I think multi-camera. This is what my understanding is. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is multi-camera is able to capture the entire scene in one go, and
Yeah.
single cam you have to go take. Like one actor's
And
take,
you
then
have
the
to
other
do
actor's take, then the other
all
actor's
the
take.
coverage
Yeah,
shots and all the rest of it. It's like
exactly.
shooting a movie.
All
Single
that.
camera is like shooting a movie,
Exactly.
right? Multi-camera
Exactly. Yeah.
is like just doing your thing.
Yeah. Everything in one go.
Got it.
So
Right, that was
yeah,
a long diversion without talking
no,
about any hangouts.
but super interesting. That was now we know a little bit more about how TV shows work. That's awesome. So let's get to some of the classic TV show hangout spaces. Let's start with Jalasmi because she hasn't spoken in a while. Jalasmi.
See, when you talk about all these Hollywood places, I wouldn't know because I don't watch them. But right now,
It's totally good.
I am okay. I'll play safe first. Let me
Yeah.
talk about Friends and that cafe and that orange
Of course,
sofa.
Central Park, yes.
Yeah,
course.
I think that's an iconic place. But I recently learned,
Absolutely.
we used to always think इनको हर time कैसे ये जगह मिल जाती है. But then yeah, it was obviously reserved.
There was an episode. I don't know if you remember. There's an episode where you know what I'm talking about. Amit?
I do.
Yeah,
There's an
yeah,
episode
somebody
where
else
all of them enter.
sits there.
Yeah, and that entire group, an entire other group is sitting there, and they're just like they don't know what to do. So just like just go out of the cafe again. That's yeah.
But I don't know, didn't they pay for reserving such a big place or something? Because most of them were all broke.
They never mentioned that. You're right. That's
Yeah.
what
See, all
asking
these
at least.
practicalities you need to understand. Anyway, so coming back right now, I am binging on this show called The Bold Type. It's
Okay.
it's of the chick flick genre, but I'm able to vicariously live New York City and that life through that show, so it's keeping me happy. It's okay. They
Yeah.
have a very nice place called a hangout place called the Fashion Closet. So they are a big magazine. They have designers coming and sending them clothes and stuff like that. So everything is in one place called the Fashion Closet, where these three friends, they meet
Hmm.
after a long day. They discuss what happened during the day. They, if there is an issue, everybody sends emails to themselves, come to the Fashion Closet right now, and then they go there, discuss everything. So I think that is the kind of hangout spot. I think that's really cool, which is why that is one thing I wanted to mention.
Cool.
And there is one more show called, along the same lines, Four More
Yeah.
Shots Please. They had
Of course,
this
yes.
place called Truck Bar, but the best part was they didn't sit inside the bar. There was a place outside the bar, in a small veranda sort of a thing, where they had their own table. So that was their hangout spot. So yeah, I wanted
Okay.
to talk about these three.
All right. So
Right.
the one I definitely cannot end this episode without talking about is you've heard of the show It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, right? So
Yeah.
the show revolves
Yeah.
around these 5 people who own a bar called Paddy's Pub. Okay, it's an Irish drinking pub called Paddy's Pub, and that is, to me, what a fun hangout spot, because the concept of the show is that these guys have a lot of their day just free to do whatever they want, and bars are both basically, they see traffic more in the evenings and at night than they see in the afternoons. So these guys have a lot of their mornings just free. So they have made this bar at different points of time. They have made this bar into a spot for like running scams for a cola, a wolf cola, that is like a made up cola that they just come up with, and they're selling from the bar. Then they've come up, they've had beauty pageant for kids. Very controversial episode, hilarious. They had a beauty pageant for kids at this bar, and then this inspector comes, he like to see whether everything is being above board or not. And so like they've done like a lot of cool dark things. They've had a funeral for a baby in this bar
Okay.
again. So again, these guys go all out and they're hilarious. And this bar is just essential to what they do. So that's one. Another one of my favorite hangout spots is, were you guys ever fans of that 70s show? The TV
Yes,
show,
of
that 70s
course.
show? Yeah.
Where did
The
they hang out?
basement.
They hung out at the
The
basement.
basement.
Yeah. Okay.
The
Right.
basement. Yes. Loved the basement. And so it's the circle and the basement. If people who know that 70s show know what I'm talking about. The implication was that whenever they're down in the basement, they're basically getting high on marijuana. That was the implication. But they never really showed it. They never showed someone smoking or getting high. They always used to just show people lighting agarbattis to get rid of the smell. Again, presumably, and they just showed it in a very cool way where it's a circle, right? It's a circle of friends sitting and getting high together, and they would always just show with the camera in the center. And the camera just flips, and it's the next person, and he says a line, and then the camera just flips. The other person is doing something else and says another line. So again, this basement has been like integral to the show, and I imagine to the success of the show, where they would do like a lot of funny things in this basement. There, like almost every episode has shown the basement, at least when they were in town in Wisconsin. And so yeah, a lot of I have a couple of more places, but Amit, if you would like to run down a
Sure.
few of your.
So again, as you know, I did a ton of research for this, right? And I really, really
Yes,
prepared before we started.
yeah,
But honestly, when Jalasmi brought up the fashion closet place, that for some reason struck a memory, which is it brought up a new place in my mind. I did a quick Google search and I found the place. It's called. So
yeah.
have you guys seen the show, The Newsroom?
I know of
Uh,
the show.
I've heard
okay.
Yeah,
of it.
So
yeah,
it's a show. It's about a fictional newsroom. It's I mean, like they are journalists and finding stories and stuff like that. It's a CNN-like network, which is where the guy goes, the main anchor goes a little nuts, and they recalibrate and kind of really do a good news show. So they have a after-show bar to hang out at called Hang Choose, right? And so this is the quote I found, which is why I remembered it so much, right? And I'm on
yeah.
board for anything like this almost every time, right? So there's a karaoke bar. So this is said by Neil. Basically, Dave Patel plays this guy. There's a karaoke bar down the street we go to. Drinks and appetizers are $3 until 9 o'clock. So basically, $3 a drink, $3 an appetizer until 9 o'clock. Jim says it's 9:15. Neil, we send an intern down at 8:55 to order 30 drinks and 4 platters of tuna jerky. The downside
Nice.
is the karaoke, but it's the only place nearby that stays open late unless you want to go to the theater district. I thought the downside would be 4 platters of tuna jerky. Neil, it's an affordable dinner. But I like that idea, right? That after work you have this place where you go and
Yeah.
just like kind of hang. Which is why even the comedy space, the comedy I wanted to talk about a little bit was Cheers, right? I love the
Yeah, of
idea
course.
that you finish work, go hang out at a place, all your friends are over there,
Where
and
everybody knows your name. Yeah.
yes, where everybody knows your name.
For Mumbaikars, we hang in trains after work.
Nicely
Well,
done. Nice.
you can still hang
Yeah.
in trains after work, but if you go for a drink first, you hang in trains an hour later.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
also there.
Yeah. And the train ride is a little more fun.
That is true.
No.
I agree. I have definitely done this when I was I think in 2016. Every Saturday I used to go to Marine Drive and then
Oh.
go to, I think there was a small cafe, have a beer and stuff like that, and take a Virar local at
Okay.
11 o'clock in the night. And Virar fast, so it
Uh-huh.
didn't stop at most of the places after Andheri.
Hmm.
Andheri ke
Right.
baad bhi it was fast, but then the wind and you stand by the window. It was just too good.
Yeah, I guess when you're a little
Memories.
like tipsy and the wind in your
The
face.
train is,
Yeah, that'll
train
be
is
good.
Yeah.
fun, man, at that time. I mean, I don't know if I would stand at the door. I prefer to sit after a few drinks on the train. But so I used to, when I used to work in the movies, right? That time all of my shooting was in the suburb side. And I would travel by train up and down a lot. But almost after every single shift, there is a bottle of alcohol consumed, right? And so there are four
Yeah.
people consuming a bottle of alcohol. So you had 3 drinks. So, you're not exactly in the best of this. But yeah, you
Yes.
walk to the train station, get on the train, but I'd always find a place to sit. I hopefully find a window seat is empty.
Yeah.
I have a
So
friend. I have a friend. I have a friend named Siddharth who used to do this very dumb thing, and he used to show off about it. He would climb up on the local train up to the top and just sit there, and he was like really proud of this. But
That's
he's
just
that's
stupid.
so
No.
dangerous and stupid. Yeah, but he's a really good friend of mine.
That's
Yeah.
potential
Yeah.
suicide. No.
Absolutely, that's so
Yeah.
dangerous. Oh God.
Yeah, that's just a
But,
bad
oh,
idea. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
But-
Do not try that at home. Another place that is another couple of places that I'd like to talk about before we end is Community is one of my favorite TV shows. They have a Spanish study group. The entire show is based around this Spanish study group who studies Spanish together. Okay,
Right.
and they basically hang out in this place called Group Study Room F. That's the study room, like in their library where they all study
Yeah.
together. And so again, that room has seen so many things, man. They've like had entire bottle episodes. For those who don't know, bottle episodes are where it's mainly only the cast and minimal locations. Just this is again done as a cost-cutting kind of thing in TV shows where say there are 20 episodes in a season, right? Some episodes will have a high budget and some episodes just won't. So bottle episodes are made to be able to give those episodes that require the higher budget the higher budget. So that's why you make these bottle kind of episodes. So they have like so
I
many
might
funny
be
bottle episodes.
mistaken, but I think at one point in time on IVM Likes, we did a full show about bottle episodes.
You
I
could be right.
wrong. I could be wrong about this, but I feel like we did this once. Too many episodes, man. 197, you said,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, too
197.
many. Can't
Oh,
remember exactly
yeah.
which.
Yeah. So, but if there is such an episode, you'll find the description of it on this episode. So, yeah, check it out. So that's one. The study room F, and the second one is another one of my one of my favorite shows is Scrubs, and the entire show is based on they are all employees of a hospital called Sacred Heart. So 90% of the show is shot in that hospital, which actually, by the way, was a real hospital. But that was the entire show. They would like all the break rooms are in that hospital, all the cafeterias, all the operation theaters and ETs, emergency rooms or ERs.
But
All of
does
that is based in
qualify? Does that qualify
as a hangout spot.
hangout
Again,
place?
yeah. See, it can either be a workspace or a hangout spot. But if you're a
But-
doctor who spends all his time in the hospital, you make certain rooms your hangout spot. So I
Yeah.
would say as a whole, yes, they didn't have like any specific rooms
Hmm.
where were like majorly the hangout spot. But in my mind, the entire hospital was one major hangout spot.
No, I can be fairly pedantic about this. I would disagree with that, right? Because I see
Okay.
if by that definition, then every workplace comedy is the hangout spot.
Yeah, it's
On
true.
The
But no,
Office, Dunder Mifflin,
The Office would be Dunder
is
Mifflin.
The
Yeah,
Office,
would have
yeah,
been
is a hangout spot. In Parks and Recreation, again, The Office is the hangout spot then,
hangout
right?
spot.
Not JJ's
Okay, to
Diner, right?
that,
So
yeah, I would agree with that.
any workplace comedy or any workplace drama that you come up with, workplace drama. Are you telling me that on Criminal Minds, they're they're that
Law,
room is
like
the hangout
okay,
spot? I don't think that really works.
okay, fair. That's fair.
No,
I
but
was
talking about hospitals, shout out
yeah.
to all the kids who had their teenage in 2008 and 2009. We had a show called Dil Mil Gaye, and most of us were mad about that show. Now, in a hospital, they had a hangout spot of the locker room.
Hmm.
And
Oh,
I mean, they used to discuss cases. They used to discuss all issues with love and everything in that locker room.
I think I've only seen 4 episodes of Grey's Anatomy, but I think the same thing happens in that show, where
Yeah.
I think they use the
they have a
locker
locker
room
room.
as like a kind of
Oh, okay,
hangout area.
hangout spot. Okay, yeah, cool. That's fair. I would agree. The locker room is more of a hangout spot if it's a particular space they go
Yeah.
to on multiple episodes. Yeah, cool. Scrubs maybe doesn't apply. Then another one that I will take this place of Scrubs with is Big Bang Theory.
Huh.
Like I love the first 5 seasons or so of Big Bang Theory. Huge
Okay.
fan. And they would so the comic book store was one of my favorite hangout spots where they would
Yeah,
always
that's
be
a
like
good.
either talking
Yeah.
about comics
That's a
or
good
they'll
one.
be
Yeah,
talking about just like regular life problems that they have.
that's a good one. That guy
So
was really funny too, right? The guy who owned the store.
Sheldon. Oh, the guy who owns the store. Yeah, I forgot his name.
Yeah. I
Stuart
can't
was his
remember
name.
his name. I
Uh,
can't
I think
remember.
it was Stuart. I could be wrong, but I don't know why I'm thinking of Stuart. But yeah, so I think we have run down our list of all our
I
shows. Of
I think we've given
there was
people a
one
lot of
that
fish tangle.
you and I there was one with that you and I disagreed with. If you can quickly talk about it, is the Seinfeld Cafe, the cafe in Seinfeld, Monk's
Yeah,
Cafe. You
right.
you're not a fan of the cafe because
No,
it's like
so
a very
I mean,
dingy.
see, the thing is that when I first thought of the topic, right, again, after all my intensive research on the subject, I really was of the impression that we were looking at places which look like places we would want to hang out at. Now, Monk's
Uh,
Cafe, given the location of where it is in New York City, right, it's on the Upper East Side, right?
yeah.
Given that, there are probably within 100 feet of it 5 places which are better looking and just as probably food is better, looks better, nicer to hang out at. It just seemed like it seemed out of place for the neighborhood that this thing is supposed to be, that this place is supposed to be in. It doesn't,
Okay.
like this isn't like Jerry Seinfeld lives in a rich part of New York City, right? I mean, like
Of course. Yeah.
he lives in Bandra, basically, right? So now you go to Bandra, you're not going to want to go to the kind of restaurant that you have. Like it's like the equivalent of going to like a Kapoli roadside place that is when you're in Bandra, and you're somebody who has money, as that is the place that you go to every day, right? And that seems
No.
very unlikely.
But in the show, Seinfeld is still an upcoming comedian, right? He's not like
No,
a fully established
he's
actor.
dude. He got a pilot in the show. He got a TV pilot in the show. He was already an established
But again,
comedian.
no,
No,
like a
he's an
pilot,
established.
anyone can get a
He's an
pilot.
No, oh, dude. Again, you're thinking of this from a 2010 lens. In 2010, anybody,
Mhm.
any comedian with a reasonable amount of following can get a pilot because there are so
Pilot, yeah.
many. There are so many places where content is coming out. In 1990, there were 4 channels for content.
Hmm.
There were
Okay,
four
yeah, I get it.
channels for content, right? And for you to be selected as somebody who is being asked to make a pilot means that you, and again, stand-ups were not given pilot opportunities the way they are right
Oh,
now.
yeah.
Seinfeld changed that, right? Before that, Bill Cosby was a comedian, but if you look at
Hmm.
what some of the other shows were, the most popular shows before that, right? Like so, Night Court. Harry Anderson was a magician. He wasn't a comedian. He was a stage performer, but he was a magician. The rest of that
Okay.
cast was no comedians, right? I'm just thinking of the comedies from the 80s that were there. Family Ties.
There's
Michael
a
J.
family
Fox,
times, yeah, family
actor.
times. Yeah, correct.
Cheers, Ted Danson is an actor. Your leads were generally like serious actors. They were not comics.
That's
That's
true.
a newish thing, right? So
I
Seinfeld.
remember, yeah, you're right. Now that I'm thinking about it, you're right because when someone used to get a pilot, it used to be like very huge news, and they used to have like pilot deals where you would be like on like a pilot contract. No, like for a development deal. You call it a development deal, where you will be told, okay, we'll make multiple pilots with you. Whichever one gets picked up, right? Wasn't that the development deal?
Yeah. No, that kind of thing happens too.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, like, think about how big a deal it was when Dave Chappelle walked away from his Chappelle show, right?
Yeah, of course.
That was something that again happened late 90s, right? It was such a big deal because comics didn't get shows. You would like, you just
Chappelle show happened in early 2000s, by the way.
I think it was
Chappelle
late 90s. Was it? No, like late 90s, like 99-ish.
I think Chappelle show was only in the 2000s.
Oh, was it? Okay,
it was in 2003. First episode in 2003.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah.
But still, even back then, it was rare. It was not normal for people to be able to for comics to get shows. It was a rare circumstance, right? Like I think, and there were lots of ups and downs, right? Ellen had a sitcom which didn't work, and that basically that it kind of that show went down this. There were a bunch of people who got these kinds of opportunities and it just didn't work.
Yeah.
Wow. See, this is why you don't call me, right? Because I take you on all these tangents.
No, this is great. I actually love talking about it. I can talk about this I can talk about this for days, man. This is great. So, but we have to end this episode. Thank you so much. This is a very, very lovely talk. I'm sure we'll think of like other hangout spots that we missed. So please let us know in the comments if you guys would like us to do another episode on this and talk about some hangout spots that we missed out on. Jalasmi, where can people follow you online?
It's Hatika Bachcha on Instagram.
All right. And Amit?
Doshi Amit, mostly on Twitter, but I'm everywhere.
All right. And you can follow me on Instagram at AntarikshT and on Twitter at AntarikshTak. So please follow us there. Thank you so much for tuning in. This has been lovely. Yeah. See you guys next week. And stay tuned for the 200th episode coming up in about 3 weeks. Thank you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye. We hope we get to visit our hangout spot soon.
Yes, that's true. All right, that's the end.
All right, cool. That was great.
Hi, I'm DJ, one of the presenters of the Edges and Sledges cricket podcast. I'm based in London and host the podcast along with my friend from school, Varun, who's based in Singapore, and his brother Ashwin, who's based in the US. We've all been massive fans of Indian cricket all our lives, and despite living in 3 different time zones and having pretty busy professional lives, we decided to start our own cricket podcast in March 2018. After putting out 59 episodes on our own, we were delighted to join IVM in May 2019, becoming the first pre-existing podcast to be picked up by India's largest podcast network. We've chatted with some awesome people, had some fantastic cricketing conversations along the way, but the main reason we do this every week is to have fun discussing the same cricket topics and issues that you guys are talking about every day in your living rooms. We're fans, not experts, so expect us to be honest. We really hope you decide to join us every week on the podcast.
पेश खिदमत है आपकी शान में हमारे अंजुमन से. Hi, I am Sadaf.
And I'm Arshit. खाने का इतिहास, economics, policy, psychology, सब है मेन्यू पे.
Only on the Nankari podcast every Wednesday, सिर्फ IVM Podcast app या वेबसाइट पर या फिर जहां से भी आप अपने पॉडकास्ट सुनते हो.